What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. You've got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse coming out, and they just put out one of those trailers not too long ago with Post Malone, a song called Sunflower, and I got that stupid song stuck in my head, so I figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and just talk about Miles Morales. You know what? I've been meaning to do this for a long time. Let's talk about Miles motherfreaking Morales, the kid who picked up the mantle when the Marvel Ultimate Universe's Spider-Man was fatally shot and killed by the Green Goblin, dying and leaving his loved ones behind in a city that still needed protecting. And just the same way that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell in Game of Thrones, there must always be a Spider-Man protecting the streets of Manhattan. With Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse less than 2 months away, let's talk about the hero everyone hated until they didn't. But before we get started, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click. Miles Morales is a really interesting character to me, not just from a story perspective, but from a real-life fandom perspective as well. Created by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli, and first appearing in Ultimate Fallout number 4 back in 2011, when Miles first hit the scene, fans were divided to say the least. Oh sure, people love him now. I remember this character making mainstream media headlines. Every news outlet talked about him. People called it everything from amazing and wonderful to SJW Marvel trying to be politically correct by making him both black and Puerto Rican. Me personally, I prefer the Washington Post article that released around that same time titled "Sorry Peter Parker, the response to the Black Spider-Man shows why we need one." I even appreciate the fact that Bendis wrote this character in a way that made me care about him and his problems. His family dynamic was instantly relatable to me. He has a whole other set of problems and issues than Peter Parker, like getting into a good school and whether or not he even really feels he deserves it. His father and uncle's relationship and how he hides his closeness to his uncle from his father. More on that a little later. And though the way Miles Morales becomes Spider-Man is kind of paint by numbers, that's not what I came to the game for. Speaking of, Miles becomes Spider-Man through pure happenstance. Pretty much the same way Peter Parker did. Something that is, spoiler alert, masterfully mirrored in Sony's Spider-Man on PS4. While trying to reverse calculate who Spider-Man is after realizing that he was someone bitten by one of his genetically modified spiders, one of Norman Osborn's other genetically manipulated spiders, Subject 42, happens to get free when it's revealed it has the ability to camouflage itself. During a break-in by the Prowler, who was in the process of stealing the formula containing Peter Parker's DNA and the key to recreating Spider-Man, we realize that Spider 42 hitched a ride inside the Prowler's bag. Turns out, Prowler happens to be the uncle of Miles Morales, Aaron Davis, an estranged uncle that, considering Miles' father, Jefferson, distances himself and his family from him, and though he seems like a decent guy, or at least a good uncle who probably understands Miles more than even his own father can, he does live a shady AF lifestyle, and while Miles is hanging out at Uncle Aaron's, the spider comes out of hiding and Venom shocks him by biting his hand. Miles freaks out, Miles passes out and starts foaming at the mouth. Simple as that. And it doesn't take long for his powers to manifest themselves, because while Jefferson and Aaron argue over what's best for Miles after the incident, Miles jets and hides outside, only he's hiding a little too well. His father is literally right by him and can't see him, because Miles instinctively turned invisible thanks to his new powers. His agility, endurance, speed, and strength have also beefed up, being pretty much on par with Peter Parker's by Tony Stark's analysis. He can also cling to walls and such just like Peter could. He also got another trick up his sleeve that Peter Parker didn't. The Venom shock. The spider used on him, he's got that too. Simply by touching someone, he can transmit bioenergy capable of paralyzing a human being, and even destroying inanimate objects as strong as steel depending on how much he puts into it. Fortunately, the first guy who catches the Venom shock, a local bully who's smelling himself a bit too much, only gets a taste. First one's free. Later on in the comics, Miles Morales even learns how to conduct this Venom shock through his webbing. He's also got the trademark spider sense, but his is slightly different than Peter's. Peter's spider sense was all over the place, giving him warnings about things that may not even immediately happen at times. It was always like a weird get-out-of-jail-free card for whoever the writer was at the time. Miles' spidey sense only warns him about direct and immediate incoming threats. Basically, Peter's goes off before the punch is thrown. Miles's goes off when the punch is coming his way. The thing about Miles that really sets him apart from Peter is that despite the fact he loves superheroes and watching them do what they do, he doesn't want to be one. Because when he discovers his powers, he's scared he might be a mutant. And knowing how his father feels about mutants in a round them up and lock them away type vibe, and the way the world as a whole views mutants, because in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, they dialed up the way people intrinsically hate mutants up to 11. Miles is really just worried about disappointing his dad and losing his love, even when he reveals his powers to his best friend Genki, who was pretty much Ned Leeds in the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, down to the T. He even asks some of the same fanboy questions about Miles' powers that Ned asked Peter. Genki is the ride or die best friend and really helps keep Miles' head from swimming in his own thoughts too much. Genki doesn't believe him at first until he sees what Miles can actually do. And eventually, it's even Genki who helps Miles realize that he isn't a mutant after all. And once he realizes this, it makes him more likely to want to learn about his powers, but he doesn't really get the hero bug until him and Genki are passing a burning apartment building, and Genki convinces him that it doesn't matter who sees him or what anyone thinks, you gotta do the right thing. And Miles does. But even then, he still worries what his parents will think, and honestly, the whole ordeal freaked him out. It's not until much later when the news breaks that Spider-Man was killed and he goes to the scene of the crime and he realizes the thing Peter Parker has always lived by. He realizes that if he actually owned his powers and used them the way Genki encouraged him to, Peter Parker may have still been alive. It's a stretch, but I see his logic. He even reaches out to Gwen Stacy during the funeral that literally everyone was at, asking her why Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Why'd he do what he did knowing he could risk everything? And though Gwen walks away from him, she immediately comes back telling him the story of Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, and how Peter vowed he'd never let it happen again because with great power comes great responsibility. Genki immediately goes out and buys Miles an $80 Spider-Man costume from the Halloween store, and this goes over about the way you'd expect. I felt right here that Bendis not only conveyed a genuine reaction of how real-world people would feel if someone picked up another person's legacy immediately after they died, but also channeled the audience of naysayers that disliked this version of Spider-Man almost without hesitation before even reading it. And how people jump off the handle whenever a character passes the torch, getting reactions from criminals, bystanders, and even victims that he's saving saying roughly the same thing. That is disrespectful. To the point that even Spider-Woman, Peter Parker's clone in this universe, demands to know who he is when she catches him jumping rooftops. She is clearly pissed off, and rightfully so, but she even goes further with it by webbing him up and knocking him unconscious and taking him to S.H.I.E.L.D., where he's held captive in front of Nick Fury, Hawkeye, and Iron Man. When Nick questions him one-on-one, you immediately get it that Nick already knows the story when he asks Miles how he got his powers. He's only asking for clarification. The thing he's more concerned about is Miles' uncle, the Prowler. Nick Fury gives him the dad talk, but it's not coming from a place of anger. But he does feel Miles is untrained and not ready to fill Spider-Man's shoes. He also feels he needs a new outfit, one that doesn't scream I'm ripping off a dead beloved superhero who saved NYC a million times over. But the convo is cut short when Max Dillon, Electro, busts loose from inside S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters and goes on a killing spree. He even bodies Iron Man and Hawkeye, something I'm pretty sure has never happened before, at least not in Marvel proper. He even puts hands on Spider-Woman, who is typically no slouch against the man that mastered high voltage, but leave it to Miles Morales, the kid who was basically told to get to the back of the superhero bus, comes in and acts because he couldn't stand idly by. He distracts Electro enough to get in close and Venom shock him, a trick that actually catches him off guard and even causes Electro's powers to spike and throw him off his game. And it's just enough to keep him from concentrating on his energy shield long enough for Nick Fury to pop a few rounds in him and put him down. Not permanently though, just neutralizing. But all in all, he technically defeats his first supervillain, more of an assist than an actual drained shot, but hey, you take what you can get. Miles goes back to his normal life, giving up the $80 Spider-Man costume and picking back up his normal mundane life until he encounters a visitor outside his school. A woman with a very familiar stance, Spider-Woman, only not in costume, and she simply hands him a briefcase and tells him that it's a gift from Nick Fury, and it's not a game. If he's in, he's in, and if he's going to do it, he has to remember what he's representing and what that stands for. And there you have it. Miles Morales officially takes the torch and becomes the ultimate Spider-Man. This story ticks a lot of boxes for me. As I said earlier, the family dynamic, the day-to-day things going through Miles' head, all of it. It feels relatable to me. I think it's easily relatable for a lot of younger readers too. And it really speaks to why a larger sector of the comics community has campaigned for Marvel to bring Miles Morales to the wider audience, because for some, he is their Spider-Man. Hell, going back and rereading Ultimate Spider-Man made me realize just how much modern media versions of Spider-Man don't rely on the bog standard vanilla Earth 616 version of Peter Parker, and how much they lean on the Bendis run of Ultimate Spider-Man, especially the Miles Morales portions. Spider-Man Homecoming's Peter Parker and Ned Leeds dynamic, and the Science School bit, Spider-Man on PS4 and how they reveal Miles Morales, and even the cartoons nowadays, they all eat at the table set by the original recipe Spider-Man, but they live and die on the hill of Ultimate Spider-Man. I also think Miles, for me, became my litmus test for whenever Marvel or DC introduce a new character who takes up the mantle of an established hero. A lot of people always try and say that DC Comics is better at it, but honestly, the reason why they are quotey fingers better is because DC Comics always backdoors their legacy characters 10 to 20 years in advance and gives you the frog boiling water treatment just so you won't be triggered. And Marvel just throws them in, but one thing I can tell you, Miles proved to me legacy characters in Marvel do work the way that they do them, and they should work, whether you want them to or not. Not every Spider-Man is for you, and just because it isn't for you doesn't mean it isn't for someone else. The more you know. But anyways, let me know what you think about Miles Morales. Sound off in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. And if you want to become one of Earth's mightiest patrons as well, swing on over by patreon.com/blerdwithoutfear. And if you chuck in a buck, you can get some exclusive content. And if you don't want to become one of Earth's mightiest patrons, that's fine too. Hey, all I ask is that you like this video and share it with your friends. And who knows, maybe they'll become some of Earth's mightiest subscribers too. Anyways, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and while you're here, go ahead and check out some of these other videos I got floating around here. But until next time, Plus Ultra!